so it wasn't just me coming straight out of college and joining this organization. It was me and 10 others.
Oh,
So,
wow.
you got friends from the get-go, and
Yeah.
friends that you got to develop a relationship at work and outside of work.
Mm.
And that was wonderful. I think I recommend that to anyone coming out of college is find
Yeah.
one of these development programs.
Turn this up. Turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality. Welcome to the IncrediPaul podcast. And now, sharing his expertise, experience, and excellence with the world, here's your host, Paul Ferranby.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranby, and welcome to the IncrediPaul podcast, where we learn to become the best versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Trisha Peterson on the podcast. Trisha, why don't you tell the people what you do and just a little bit about you?
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So as Paul mentioned, I am Trisha Peterson. I am by background, by educational background, I'm an industrial engineer. I also have an MBA. However, of course, just those credentials doesn't say, or provide your leadership, right?
Yeah.
And I'm currently an operational excellence manager for Millipore Sigma.
Awesome.
It's a company that produces, at our site specifically, we produce diagnostic products for cancers and different treatments too. So immunotherapy treatments and things like that. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot there between industrial engineering, MBA, and what you do at Millipore Sigma. So, how long have you been at Millipore Sigma?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been there for 2 years.
Awesome.
I've been in the role as an operational excellence manager, supporting 2 different sites for both the 2 years. Previous to joining the organization, I worked for Nestle Purina. I had various different roles. I started in their management development program in their Davenport, Iowa factory. That program really helps you learn the organization and the business and how they produce pet food and the whole supply chain, which is really exciting. It's a great opportunity, especially for someone coming straight out of college.
Yeah.
And then from there, I did various roles throughout my 5.5 years with the organization, doing mostly or pretty much all continuous improvement.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned Davenport, Iowa. Is that where you're from, or where are you from?
Oh, that's a great question. I am not from Davenport, Iowa. I am from east of St. Louis. So about 40 miles east of St. Louis originally, in a very small town called Damiensville, a town of about 500 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very small. Everyone knows everyone. From there, they had a elementary school, if you will, then went to a county high school, which is in Breeze, Illinois. From there, I went to SIU Edwardsville in Edwardsville, Illinois.
Awesome.
That's where I got my bachelor's degree in industrial engineering.
So kind of your I know you said your path, you work in operational excellence at Millipore Sigma. Is that what you always wanted to do, or is that kind of like kind of talk me through, Trisha, like even like 10, 15 years ago, what is there something you wanted to do, and how did like life kind of change or direct you?
Oh my goodness. So when I was younger, I think I had a couple different career ideas, and they are all over the place. One was teaching. When I was a child, I
Awesome.
kind of idolized my teachers a little bit. When they make such a great impact on you, it makes you want to give that back to others. And so I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Not too long, then I'm in high school and I really enjoy sports and specifically NFL football. I'm a big football fan. And I always wanted to be then a sports journalist.
Yeah.
Then I went into sports journalism. Well, then I don't know. I really have a huge passion for pets, which is ironic that I worked for Nestle Purina. I think when I was looking for jobs out of college, that was one of the things that really hit me, was like, oh my goodness, I love pets so much and I love cats and dogs, and working for Purina felt rewarding in that way. However, that was kind of my third part where I wanted to go into veterinarian. So I wanted to be a vet. for a while. So I went from teacher to sports journalist to vet, and then ultimately became an industrial engineer. And how that happened, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. You know, these were all great ideas, and you kind of went through phases as you were growing. And my mom was like, you know, you're really good at math and science. Why don't you go through the engineering career path? Like, why don't you look there?
Yeah.
And one of the things that really connected with me is my father is actually a retired operator from, he used to work for, I forget what the company's called, but they used to make plastic bottles in Centralia, Illinois. They shut down. He then moved on to Cooper Beeline, where he ended up retiring there as an operator. And I always enjoyed talking to him about work. And I think it's fun to reflect on the conversations that we had, because being on the side where I work with the floor very closely. However, I also see the business side of things where he never really connected with the business decisions.
Okay.
It was the perception of management is deciding to do this and management that. And I always think that's fun. And not only getting to talk to him, but my grandpa was also in operations. So he's a retired supervisor at a glass factory in Fenton, Missouri.
Wow.
I'm not sure the name of it. I know they made the glass bottles for Anheuser-Busch.
Wow.
But getting to talk to, both of them and hearing, their perspective, it's fun. And I think nothing's more fun than mass producing something and making something like very efficient and like, how can you do better? I think it's really fun and rewarding.
Well, man, that is remarkable. I didn't realize that from, you said at first you wanted to be a teacher, then you said, was it veterinarian or what? There's something before that?
There's sports journalist and veterinary. I get those two kind of went, hand in hand. I don't remember which one was first, if I'm being honest. But I remember they were both like high school time frame. And actually there was a exercise we had to do in class. One of our math classes, they actually, you had to pick a career. They would give you an average salary, and then you had to determine how you were going to live off that salary.
Oh,
and I remember the job I picked was sports journalist. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had no idea. So I know you mentioned like working at Purina. So for those on the podcast, that's how Trisha and I met for working at Purina. She was actually one of the first people I met when I the first day working at Purina while in St. Louis. But I know like while you were in Purina that you worked for a few locations. I know you mentioned Davenport or some other locations that you were in.
Yeah, after Davenport, I actually transitioned back to St. Louis team in St. Louis, where I was on 2 assignments, one in St. Joe, Missouri for 6 months straight. So, I wasn't stationed there, I guess, if you will, like lived there, but
yeah,
I basically, I traveled on Sunday nights and came back Friday nights. So
I
basically lived there for 6 months. And then also Fort Dodge, Iowa was the same situation for 6 months. After that stint, if you will, I then moved to Flagstaff, Arizona, where I was the operations performance, I think assistant manager is what they called it, operations performance. Yeah, so I worked there and then said, hey, I would like to take an opportunity back in St. Louis, closer to home. And I was very fortunate to get that opportunity. And that's when I joined the St. Louis team, the market team, where they, supported all the different divisions, the wet, litter, and dry operations. And that's where I met Paul. Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So I think you had transitioned back into St. Louis like the year before. Was that 2018?
That sounds about right. Like 2017, 2018 timeframe. I started with the organization in 2015. I was in Davenport, Iowa for a year. Then did that assignment with St. Joe and Fort Dodge for a year. And then I was in Flagstaff for just about a year. And then I came back to St. Louis. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of movement just in 3 years.
It is. It is. But, at the time I was single and didn't have a family to carry around. So, have to think about their impact as, moving is stressful on families. And I wasn't in that situation, so it wasn't too difficult to make the decisions, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's fair. So talk to me a little bit about those transitions, even if there was much of a transition or not, because I know you said you went to school in SIUE Edwardsville, just outside St. Louis, going from there to Davenport and then back to St. Louis and then to Flagstaff and back to St. Louis.
Yeah. I think about the transition personally and professionally.
Mhm.
From a professional standpoint, you're working for so many different people, right? And
Mm.
every leader has a different way of leading, if you will. And so that's one interesting perspective. And I had my first leader out of college in Davenport. She was great, but looking back, it was like, well, that's all I ever knew. And I'm not discrediting her at all. She was wonderful. However, you don't get to see different leadership styles at that point, or you don't really recognize them. Then when I was part of the St. Louis team and going to the Fort Dodge and St. Joe factories, it's interesting to look back because the way they structured it, it wasn't very clear who was like your leader. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
who do I
really?
go to about these questions?
Okay.
You kind of had like a dotted line. So that was an interesting transition.
Okay.
And then out in Flagstaff, when I was there, the factory manager that I reported to, he was there for just about, I don't know, 5-6 months, and he transitioned onto a different role. And we got a new factory manager in. And so then you learn how to work with this new leader. And then I, had left Flagstaff, came back to St. Louis, where you had more consistency. I had more stability in my guidance, if you will, from a leadership standpoint. From a personal standpoint, SIUE is close to home, right? I was always near my friends and family, never too far away. Moved to Davenport, Iowa. I joined this management development program. So it wasn't just me coming straight out of college and joining this organization. It was me and 10 others. So you got friends from the get-go, and friends that you got to develop a relationship at work and outside of work. And that was wonderful. I think I honestly, I recommend that to anyone coming out of college, is find one of these development programs. I know Millipore Sigma, the company I work for now, they have the same type of situation, right? They have the same similar structure, same concept of developing someone straight out of college into a leadership role. And I think it's wonderful. It's a great transition from your lifestyle at school to going to a professional career. After that, when I was on the assignment for St. Joe and Fort Dodge, we had a team, right? So there was a team that traveled together. There was, 3 or 4 of us. And you get to, once again, create a very close bond with these individuals. You spend week after week with them, from Sunday night to Friday night, getting dinner after work, departing at the hotel, meeting again in the lobby the next morning, and, doing it all over again. And that was great, right? Having that close-knit relationship with my coworkers and friends. When I moved to Flagstaff, that was probably the most challenging for me.
Oh, really?
Yes, because Flagstaff to St. Louis is an all-day trip. It's a 2.5-hour drive from Flagstaff to Phoenix. It's a 4-hour flight or something like that from Phoenix to St. Louis, and and all the airport time. So it was never like, my friends asked me to hang out, this weekend. I could, plan my weekend, drive down from Iowa to St. Louis. I can't just drive from Flagstaff home. And I think it was too, something I reflect on is the way that I personally, I think I was a little bit more introverted, where it was hard for me to by myself go out and try to make friends, whereas before it was like, well, work provided all my friends, right? I moved to Iowa. I was with 10 others straight out of college. We're all in the same situation. We all become great friends. When we're traveling to St. Joe and to Fort Dodge, we were a close-knit team. We were all friends. And then when you go to Flagstaff, not everyone's in the same stage of life as you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not everyone has the same interests or is at the same point as you. So it was really difficult. And, I gotta say, the people that I became friends with were the operators on the floor. I will never forget one day. It was very hard for me for living that far away from home. And one of the guys, his name was Dave, he came to me and said, "Hey, if you don't have any Thanksgiving plans, you can come on over and have dinner with my family." I just started crying. I just started crying. Like, thank you so much for making me feel like this is home, like as much as
That's
home can
awesome.
be.
Yeah.
And, I think I watched a couple, like maybe a Super Bowl or something over there. I know I've seen some games where we all hung out, but that was a challenging transition.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, it is an all-day journey to get out there. So it's not something you can just quickly be like, yeah, I'm gonna be out there this weekend and drive
Yeah, and
down.
there's a girl that's in the leadership development program at Millipore Sigma. There's a structured a little bit different where she's the only one at my site. And I've tried to mentor and talk with her, and she is a go-getter. She's like, I enjoy tennis, so I just looked for tennis clubs in the area.
Wow.
And she just joined tennis clubs here. Or now she's moving to her next assignment where she's going to be relocating to the Northeast area.
Wow.
And she's like already on Facebook looking for roommates to get a place. And I'm like,
Wow.
what? Why didn't I think of that? Like, I was so introverted, I guess, or maybe I just didn't think about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's just like your experiences. 'Cause I'm sure, like from your experiences in Flagstaff, you naturally became more extroverted because you kind of had to just to meet people and do different things. So I don't know if she just naturally extroverted or if she just had experiences where she's had to connect with people very quickly.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but she is doing phenomenal.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Flagstaff because I had a situation where I was not as far west, but in New Mexico area, where I worked for General Mills out there in Albuquerque, and I thought that was far, but I didn't realize like Flagstaff to St. Louis is
I
even.
mean, it's like a 4-hour drive shorter east.
It's
Albuquerque is.
Oh yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I forgot about that, but
You were far away too.
yeah, but I guess Omaha is a little bit
Oh, you're
closer. Yeah,
true.
it's a little bit closer. Yeah, but that's cool. So I know you mentioned like kind of your experiences in Purina. Were there any of the rotations or different cities you're in that were more memorable than the others? Or the two stints in St. Louis or in Davenport or Flagstaff?
You know, Davenport will always have like a special place in my heart, if you will, right? Like that was incredible. I've made lifelong friends there that I still keep in touch with. However, I will say the stint where I worked in St. Joe and I worked in Fort Dodge continuously, I got two of my closest friends through that relationship there. So Mazen.
Yeah.
Mazen's wonderful, and he helped me grow as an individual so much, and I am so thankful and grateful for him. He always had the right questions to make you think from a different perspective, or to really challenge how you're handling a situation, but not in a defensive way, right? It was always like, well, did you think about this, or how do you think they perceived that when you said that, and wonderful. Another individual would be Selena, right? One of my best friends. And I am so thankful for that. So that's the stint where I got to work with and become such great friends with Mazen and Selena, is very memorable and of course, Davenport, it all is, now I'm thinking more about Flagstaff, and it's like Flagstaff was incredible. I got to go hiking all the time.
Oh, I
It was so
bet.
beautiful. Yeah. And it also, like I said, it was the most challenging part of
Mhm.
my career, if you will, just
Mhm.
from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
So it's memorable in that way.
Okay. I can see that
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Mazin, like what you're saying with the questions that he asks, he just has a way of making you think deeper about things, and it's not really, and like you said, it doesn't make you feel defensive or like it's not aggressive in any way. It's just
Yeah. It's not like he's attacking you. He's
yeah,
just wanting you to really stretch your thinking, if you
yeah,
will.
yeah,
Um,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely.
I always think we all need a Maslin in our life.
Yes, yes. I'm still trying to get him on this podcast. So at some point he'll be on. He's promised me he'll be on it, but I know just with life and stuff,
He's a busy
he'll
guy.
yeah, he'll eventually be on. And so all of you on the podcast will be able to see what we're talking about.
That's right.
That's cool. So yeah, we've been talking about Purina. I know you're there for 5.5 years, and kind of like on the same thing with transitions. I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase the question for like how you, I know you were in Purina for 5.5 years. Now you're at Millipore Sigma.
Yeah.
How did that all happen?
That well, the transition was difficult.
Mm,
I will say I love the organization and I
yeah,
love the leader I work for. But when I first transitioned, it was during COVID times, like
yeah.
the in the deep of COVID, right?
Mhm.
Not everybody was at work, and still to
Yes.
this day, not everybody's at work. But
Yeah.
I've been there for 2 years, and so now I know more people
Mhm.
just through meetings and just general work, right?
Yeah.
You get to learn who's who.
Yeah.
However, I may not have met them face to face.
Yeah.
When I first started working for Millipore Sigma, it was difficult because I came from an organization where, I knew I was working at all the factories, right? I knew
Mm,
all these people. I had such a big network.
mhm.
I was leading events that were cross-functional within St. Louis corporate teams, such as the
Yeah.
controls team, the maintenance team, TAG, getting all these various groups together to collaborate and do some continuous improvement at the sites to, support TPM and getting the reliability of the equipment improved. And then I move to this new
Mhm.
organization. We're in the middle of COVID, where most people are working from home, and
Oh wow.
or meetings are all virtual. We're not meeting in a room face to face,
Yeah.
and it's difficult.
Mhm.
It's really hard, and so you can't help but question: did you make the right decision?
Yeah.
And that went through my mind so many times. And I am so thankful that I stuck it out, because yes, I made the right decision.
There you go.
It's just, you have to see through some of the challenges and look beyond and see, is there growth? Is this organization helping me to be better? And am I
Yeah.
helping it to be better? Work is not a one-way street. Like, it's not, you are not slowly providing for this organization. They're providing for you too.
Mm,
We spend, I don't know what percentage it is, but you spend so much time of your life at work,
yeah.
and you have to find it rewarding, and you have to find growth opportunities within it, to keep you
Mhm.
challenged, to keep you on your toes.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, then, you know, it doesn't feel right. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely should have some fun at work. I know sometimes people say work isn't fun, but you should if you never have fun at work, you're probably in the wrong job, I would say.
And that is another thing I reflect on. I am currently working way more hours than I ever did at Nestle Purina, and I love it. I
That's
absolutely
awesome.
love it. I love what I do. I love who I work with, and I find it fun.
That's good.
So I 100% agree with you.
That's so cool. I like what you said about even like when you first got there and things weren't, because like just naturally if you were any place for 5.5 years, you come into a new place and it's all different, especially in the middle of COVID, where you're not able to connect with people as easily. But the fact that you said that you looked forward as far as the growth opportunities and like what the company can provide you, not just what you provided the company, I think that's really key.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, you spend so much time there. You have to be happy and you have to get what you want out of it. And if you want to be complacent, that's fine, right?
Mhm.
If you want to be challenged, wonderful. And I'm one of the people who want to be challenged. Of course, to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
We got to balance our stress
Manageable.
levels. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know I've heard it said that there's like the challenge aspect and also the how easy something that kind of goes into like the challenge aspect and how kind of time kind of flows. Like, I don't know if you heard the concept of flow, like getting into a flow state, but it's I don't know. Have you heard of that?
No, but there is one thing. I remember seeing a quote somewhere where it was like, if you continue to look at the clock, like then you're not focused on the right thing. Something along those lines where like, when you're in the groove and you're just doing your job,
Yeah.
you forget the time. You're not
Yeah.
one to keep checking the clock and like, oh, 2 hours until I get to leave, 1 hour until I get to leave. Like there is no leaving time. It's whenever your day concludes.
Mhm.
For me anyways, it's like, oh, am I at a good stopping point? Have I accomplished what I need to get done to meet my deadline?
Mhm.
When can I go?
Yeah.
Oh, 1 hour left, 30 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When you for anyone listening on the podcast, if you find yourself you're counting down the hours or the minutes, I would question like why you're still in that job. Cause I mean, we all get in different circumstances that you just need a job to pay the bills or whatever. But I said life is too short to be stuck doing something that you hate. So like
Absolutely.
I think having an exit strategy. Speaking of exit strategy, I think that kind of transitions into how was it difficult at all to trying to like when you were in Purina looking at other opportunities, like did that kind of happen pretty smoothly or did you kind of have to like time it right, or how was that whole transition with I'm in Purina but things kind of changed a little bit, but I'm looking for growth opportunities somewhere else?
Yeah. The whole transition, there was a point where I woke up and I thought, what am I doing?
Mm,
I had traveled for the organization. I got COVID, felt really sick.
mm,
Came back, was sent back to go travel after recovering pretty quickly, right?
wow.
And so many big projects were being put on me.
Mm,
Like, oh, so and so is going to be traveling over here, so you
mhm.
need to pick up their project. But meanwhile, I also need you to do this major project for a brand new factory. And oh,
Wow.
by the way, not just one, but two factories. And hey, here we also need you to do this. Like my leader had no idea all the things that were on my plate.
Wow.
And that was there was one day that I woke up, I was traveling and my jaw hurt. My jaw hurt. It hurt to talk. It hurt to even swallow. Like my jaw was
Wow.
just in pain. And I didn't know why. I was like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I got COVID again.
Oh man.
Like, is this a symptom?
Yeah.
And then I realized I was so stressed that when I slept, I was clenching my jaw.
Oh
And
man.
when I reflect on it now, I think about how important communication is with your leader.
Mm,
At the time, we were in the trenches of COVID. I
mm,
wasn't having one-to-one dialogue with my leader and
mm,
telling him what I needed help with, what I needed support with. And,
mm,
oh, by the way, I'm not sure I have the bandwidth for all of this.
mm.
Um, and I'm not the type of person to push back on work. So that's personally difficult for me,
Uh,
right? To say like I am struggling. That is hard. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and I look at the leader that I work for now at Millipore Sigma, and I look forward to talking with him every single
Mm,
week. We have a routine one-on-one. I talk about my top priorities, some of the things are highlights. of course, we still talk a little bit about personal life beforehand. And I look back and I think, wow, I am no longer stressed. I don't sleep, like sit in my bed at night thinking about the next day and the meetings and the things I need to do. Whereas I used to do that, you know?
Oh, wow.
And I truly believe it was a lack of communication with my leader and myself on what I was doing, right? You know, Purina, it was kind of like, hey, if someone needed something, they just came straight to you, and you just
did
added
it.
it onto your workload. Like, yeah, I can take care of that. I can do that. And next thing you know, you have a mountain, right? And nothing's prioritized, and you think everything needs to be done yesterday. And it's like, oh my goodness. So going back to the question, I wasn't necessarily looking. However, a recruiter had reached out to me, and you know, I woke up, my jaw, I could barely talk, and I thought, I'm going to talk to him. I'm just see what's out there. You know, doesn't mean I got to take the leap and go. So I started talking with him. It ended up being like a 4-month process. It was very long. I'm going to blame it on COVID. And it was a long process, but I finally got the offer, and I still wasn't set on going. And I look back and I think, why wasn't I like, you know, now being on the other side and seeing how happy I am and how rewarding my job is to me, I think, wow, Trisha, it was no brainer. But I also had this ego about working for Nestle Purina. It was like this big organization, this organization everyone knows. I can go to the store and I can see the product that I help produce on the shelf. You know, so there was this sense of like, I don't know if it was ego or what, but pride. Exactly. You were so proud to work for this organization. And also, right, I talked about wanting to be a vet one day. I'm very passionate about animals. And so just knowing, hey, we're making pet food, and, you know, that organization, they donate and they do a lot of great things for the humane societies and the local communities regarding animals, right? And I have this offer for a company that, quite frankly, I don't really know exactly what they make. I know it's in the healthcare life science type thing, but what does that mean? You know, like, I'm like, I don't really know. I can't go to the store and just see what's on the shelf.
Right? You can't just pick it up.
Yeah, it's not something I personally am gonna like buy, I guess, right now, or I wouldn't know. So, you know, one product that we make, for example, is Cologuard. The colon cancer diagnostic kits, that's something one of my sites actually produces. But you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know Millipore Sigma makes the Cologuard colon cancer diagnostic kit. Like it, you know, you would never know. So there's one example of where it was like not a straight connection on what I was doing or where I was going. So that was unfortunately, one of the things that fogged my brain is, well, I have so much pride for this organization. Do I really want to leave and go somewhere that I don't know much about? But unfortunately, for my mental health sake, I said, yes, I need to do it.
Yes. So that's really good. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, especially with like, I know it's a big thing about people talking about their dream jobs or dream companies. I think a lot of time people have dream companies, even if it's not a dream job. And what people don't always realize is that, yes, the company can be great and have a good culture, but when it comes down to it, is really your boss or your manager that makes or breaks your experience.
Absolutely. I agree. And I firmly believe in you know, people don't leave the organization, they leave their leader or their boss, if you will. Not usually bosses aren't leaders.
Yes, I know. Just because you're a boss doesn't mean you're a leader, and you can be a leader without being a boss at the same time.
100% agreed.
And we'll see if I keep this in there or not. But I will say, as far as leadership shows, that you left. There were yourself, myself, we already talked about Mazin, and two other people from our group that left within a 3-4 month time span. I think well, I'll just leave it at that and says that shows in itself. There's, like you mentioned, it was in COVID. leadership had kind of transitioned and things that started to happen, and all of us, I know we had a like a happy hour and a virtual happy hour because we couldn't be in person, and we were all just talking about it, and then eventually, like one by one, we all started to leave, just because despite this great organization, like the leadership that we were under was not something that was helping us in any way.
Yeah, and it makes or breaks you, you know,
Mhm.
it's so important. Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, it's critical. So looking back, would you do anything differently, or do you feel like the kind of the process you went through like set you up pretty well?
You know, I am a firm believer in everything happens for a reason and
Mhm.
things will fall into place if they aren't smooth, right?
Yeah,
So for me, there's nothing I would do differently.
that's awesome.
Sure, there's learnings along the way,
Yeah,
but I don't, nothing that I would do different. It's all worked out. There's definitely some
mhm,
bumpy parts, but
yeah.
yeah, in the end, it was the right decision. Everything's right.
No, that's good. I agree with you there that things line up and like everything works out the way it should. Like at least for me and like for you, like I haven't been in a situation I look back and be like, dang it, I wish I hadn't done that. Like in the moment, yes, but then it either caused me to think a little bit differently or like learn something from it that made me a better version of myself. So
Absolutely. And that's the most important part, right? Is reflecting and learning and improving the future, right? Like
yes,
not doing the same thing over again.
yes,
Like
yes,
we gotta learn
yes.
one way or another.
Yes, yes, that whole idea of failing forward.
Yes, yes. I used that term the other day. I've been leading a rollout plan, a success rollout plan is really what it is.
Mhm.
And I have had to challenge myself to let others fail and let them fail
Mm,
forward. It was always hard for me to do that. And
mhm.
an individual didn't prepare and I let them fail forward. And I was talking to my leader about it. And what he said was, one person's lack of preparation is not your emergency. And that will always
Wow,
stick in my head. And that
wow.
also allowed them to fail forward, right?
Mm,
They got to think, I should have prepared sooner, or I should
mhm.
have done more work on this
Yeah,
beforehand and not relied on someone else. So, one, the support of my leader telling
that's
me,
awesome.
yeah, you don't need to drop everything because they didn't prepare for it. That was fantastic,
That's
right?
good.
But two, it was also a little growth for me because I cannot let people fail. And I had to. And not only did I get to grow, they got to grow as well.
That's the key, and that's all what this podcast is about, is that just leadership and growing day by day, because none of us are perfect. We all fail. I always say, like, if anyone has told you that they have never failed, it's one or two things. Either they have never tried anything and just things just go along, or they're lying.
Or
But
they're in denial, right?
yeah, they're in denial. They're like, oh, I
Yeah,
didn't fail.
I'm perfect.
It was a technicality.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah, but it's just really understanding that failure is not something that happens. So no, failure is something that happens to you. It's not something you are, because there's this mindset that I know it's happened to me, that being afraid to fail because I feel like that failure is an indication of myself, but it's not something that I am. It's just something that happened, but I can learn from it. I can do something different next time.
Yeah. And that to me is the most important part, right?
Mhm.
It's okay to fail, but as long as you learn from it, you
Yeah,
take a learning from it, right?
yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, we're about out of time. That really flew by, but is there anything else that we haven't talked about, like as far as who Trisha is, that you want the people to know?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I'll be back for more, maybe, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Maybe I
think
can come
so.
back for more and can share more. I don't
I
know.
think so. I think
Right.
so.
It's a journey. You always learn more and add more to it. I don't think there's anything specific.
Yeah, for sure. But you've already shared a lot from your different experiences and like this whole idea of transitions, like whether it's in Purina or outside of Purina. And I know even myself, I've had my share of transitions, even like just recently transitioned into a new job after being with Purina for 4 years. So it's like it is something that is not the easiest thing to do, but it without doing stuff differently, there's really no growth.
Yeah, exactly. I really like the quote, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because if you're comfortable, you're not being challenged. And
That is good.
if you're not being challenged, you're not growing.
That's
Right?
powerful.
Yeah.
I
So,
like that. I think we'll close with that. Everyone out there, if you're comfortable, you're probably not growing. Like that, just there's no other way to put it. You're probably not growing. Even if you're just a little bit uncomfortable, that is a good place to be. There are seasons where you can transition from uncomfortable to comfortable, but just don't stay there too long because you're not growing. But with that, thank you, Trisha, for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed having you, and probably will have you on again. I think there's more we can talk about.
absolutely.
And for everyone else that's listening to us, go out there. Don't be afraid to fail, because failure is not something that you are, it's just something that happens to you.
Thank you for listening to the IncrediPaul podcast with Paul Ferranbi. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible.